When most people picture a knight, they see a man in shining armor, a noble steed and sword-swinging heroic behavior. Something honorable, something chivalrous. But George R.R. Martin in the new HBO series, Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, asks us to really define what it means to be a knight from beyond this image. So let's explore this and see the consequences of what it really means to be a knight. Also, spoilers, guys, come on, please watch the show. It's probably one of the best shows I've seen of the last, year. 1. The myth of the knight. So, we know what a knight looks like conventionally, but beyond just looks, what else is there to knighthood? Well, that thing beyond the image is chivalry, a distinctly European code of conduct for elite warriors. But, as George points out, and is often reflected in the real world, simply being a knight in title is not the same as living a knight's values. And you'll notice that this seemingly simple idea is the entire thesis of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, and other tales about knights from George as well. Part 2, Philosophy and She. These concepts were popularized by Thomas Aquinas and Raymond Lull, but I'll be so real with you, I don't really know anything about Raymond Lull off the top of my head, so I'll let someone else talk about him. Now, Aquinas is fascinating to me because he pretty much just straight up grabs Aristotle, the pagan guy who tutored Alexander the Great, and says, okay, yeah, no, this fits with Christianity. So he took Aristotle's virtue ethics and put it into pretty much everything, including warfare. In his massive Summa Theologica, he breaks down the cardinal virtues. Prudence, which is right reason in action. You can kind of say this is don't be dumb in a fight. I like to think that this is actually his interpretation of wisdom. Justice, giving what's due, protecting the innocent, living harmoniously. Fortitude, courage under pressure, facing death without cruelty. And then temperance, self-control, no rage, no excess, no excuses. You notice these bear striking similarities to Stoic philosophy, right? They have the 4 pillars of virtue, and the only difference here is prudence is replaced with wisdom, and courage is replaced with fortitude. Almost like there's a chain of Western philosophy and cultures or something, I don't know. What about you? Aquinas says true virtue is connected. You can't have real courage without real justice or prudence. A knight who's brave but also cruel, well, that's not virtue. That's not godly, and that's not being a knight.
Fuck the king. Fuck the king. Fuck Joffrey. Fuck the queen.
So, chivalry, through this lens, isn't just a title or fancy armor. It's character shaped by reason, patience, and grace, turning a warrior into someone who defends the innocent because it's right, not because a lord says so. Part 3, George's subversion. Now let's talk about Florian the Fool, because George's world building here is immaculate. The tale of Florian comes from the Age of Heroes, a misty, semi-mythical era thousands of years before Aegon's conquest, a time where giants, man, and children of the forest walked the land. In the story, Florian starts as a fool. He's a low-born court entertainer dressed in patchwork garb. He's not a noble knight, but he does fall deeply in love with a maiden named Jonquil. Despite his humble and foolish station, he proves himself a true knight through courage, honor, and noble deeds.
You are Florian the Fool!
I am, my lady. As great a fool as ever lived. And as great a knight as well!
Fool and a knight? I've never heard of such a thing.
Sweet lady, all men are fools, and all men are knights. Where women are concerned.
This is something George says that is kind of sharp and timeless about human nature. True knighthood isn't about birth, armor, or titles. It's about what you do when it matters, when love or duty calls. This isn't only reflected in Dunk, but several other characters of the series. Most notably, the way that George writes is the difference in title and action. I made a little sheet here with what I think he's getting at with some of the characters, with a little middle ground for the more questionable ones, which I also think are the more interesting characters, generally. So, under the True Knights, we have characters like Brienne of Tarth, Sir Duncan the Tall, Sir Barristan Selmy, Davos, we can get into that another time, Baelor Breakspear, Sir Arlan of Pennytree. The kind of knights, obviously, Jaime Lannister, Sandor Clegane. I kind of put Maekar in here, because I just felt, I didn't feel like he's a true knight, and he's definitely not a knight in title only kind of thing, right? Knights in title only. Bronn of Blackwater, that is a rogue, Good sir, that is a rogue. He is not a knight, he's not even kind of a knight, he is a rogue. Sir Gregor Clegane, Sir Meryn Trant, Sir Janos Slynt, and obviously Aerion Targaryen of the main series. Part 4, Knight of the Seven Kingdoms case study. I think the most obvious inversion of knightly values in the show is the antagonist, Aerion, which is actually a good setup for Dunk with a pretty straightforward good guy, bad guy dichotomy that's still somehow entertaining, I felt like. But he seems like the type to be a knight, at least on paper. It's his attitude, arrogance, and just general fucking cruelty are what put him in the spot of knights in title only. Which I think is where we're getting to a bigger point here. See, Dunk was born in Flea Bottom. He's a peasant in every sense of the word. He's an orphan, and he has to fight for leftover scraps on the battlefield after a Blackfire rebellion just to survive. His main form of companionship comes from his friend Reef, the little peasant girl, who, many people have pointed out, has a striking resemblance to Tansel Too Tall, which is, I guess, kind of like his jonquil. Obviously, not all is great because Reef is eventually killed by the Gold Cloaks after trying to snatch a purse from them. In this case, Florian failed to act, and it cost Reef's life. But then comes Sir Arlan, perhaps one of the most important characters in the thesis of chivalry in the entire series. Sir Arlan brutally kills the Gold Cloaks, which I'm pretty sure is a major crime, by the way. He didn't think twice. He saw an innocent being attacked, and he did something about it, regardless of a knight's supposed loyalty to the king. Dunk sees this in him, and that is where a major shift happens for Dunk. And yes, Duncan then goes to follow Sir Arlan, possibly for safety, but also for something more. Because Sir Arlan was a knight, and he impressed upon the boy who's grown up in a world of cruelty and poverty that there is something deeper here. Though, I don't really think Dunk knows exactly what that is. It's kind of more of like an instinct he just follows. Now, Dunk repeatedly says a very interesting quote from Sir Arlan, that a hedge knight is the truest knight there is. This is impressive to me because a hedge knight has no lord, no politics, no side, no reputation to protect. They travel from place to place, taking honest work, and aren't tied to noble houses in a way that could compromise their morality. Because at the end of the day, any landed knight, such as one sworn to a house, they can inherit titles. They can hide behind their lord's power, and they can act cruelty with few consequences. Gregor. A hedge knight, on the other side of things, survives on reputation amongst the small folk, and pretty much that alone. If he fails to deliver, he doesn't get work, or worse, he gets killed. This is interesting to me because a hedge knight's virtue is therefore tested by reality and not ceremony. Sir Arlan in this quote is essentially saying a knight is truest when nothing but his own character compels him to act. Dunk is repeatedly kind to small folk. He's a bit of a fool, maybe some more Florian symbolism there. But when it comes to being relatively polite and knowing his station, he treats lords, blacksmiths, and even knights with the same kind of respect. This, obviously, clashes with Aerion when Dunk finds him assaulting Tansel. Without thinking about the political consequences, like literally at all, Dunk acts. He beats Aerion, and here's that scene a few times for you. He then frees his jonquil and faces the reality of his actions. He hurt the blood of the dragon, a severe crime in Westeros. So, with virtually no other options, he asks for a trial by combat. And Aerion, being the little shit that he is, knowing Dunk is a castle wall, demands the trial by 7, possibly thinking the hedge knight can't get 6 other fighters to absolve the crime. And this, I think, is where we see a larger, more nuanced idea of chivalry in action for the show. I think you could probably make an argument for each fighter's relationship to the thesis of chivalry, right? Like, the Fossway breakup over honor and justice. There's Lionel and his stance with going against the Targaryens. There's Sir Robin and his scene with Egg. Then there's the Kingsguard comments that Dunk made early on and what they're gaining from the fight. But when all is said and done, Dunk's team is still short 1. And then Dunk says the thesis of the show pretty much out loud for the audience. Has courage deserted the noble houses of Westeros? I will not believe it so. Are there no true knights among you? Enter Baelor Breakspear, hand of the king, heir to the Iron Throne. He steps forward and claims Duncan's side, justifying it with, this man protected the innocent, as every true knight must. Let the gods decide if he was right or wrong. Baelor answered the call of chivalry, justice, honor, and duty. He had virtually nothing to gain here, and seemingly only his reputation to lose. And yet, he joined anyway. The rest is pretty much history after that. The Trial of Seven erupts, and it's dirty. It's violent. Beesbury and Harding both die off screen, and we get to see not Dunk the Knight, but Dunk from Fleabottom just brawl it out with someone clearly with more skill. It's like he visited modern-day London. And obviously we get the cliched, but it's so cool, I don't care, fall of Dunk. Before a memory of Arlan comes when all seems lost, and he says, get up. He drags Aerion down in single combat, forcing the yield. Aerion withdraws his accusation, and Dunk's cleared. The gods, or just raw character, spoke. The victory costs something, foreshadowed by Maekar's other son, Darion. Prince Baelor, the best of them, dies from wounds in the melee, delivered by his own brother's mace in the chaos. The heir apparent gone, defending a low-born nobody who acted when no one else would. But that's George. Because what George does is he gives you the ideal, then shows the price when a good character makes a miscalculated decision. Red Wedding, trusting Circe, and entering a melee thinking that you're safe. And yes, chivalry wins, but it bleeds the realm dry for it. Something that Dunk struggles with in the final episode, because succession twists darker when a true knight chose honor over dynasty. And now this is where everything kind of circles back to Florian. Dunk starts as a fool, thick, lowborn, maybe not even properly knighted, which is kind of hinted at. He acts on instinct to protect Tansel, his jonquil, without weighing consequences. He fails Reef once, but learns. When it matters, you stand. Egg hustles the champions, Raymond earns his spurs and betrayals fire, Lionel knights him on the spot, and Baelor, the prince answers the cry because he sees the truth in the fool. Sir Arlan was right. A hedge knight is the truest because nothing but his own soul compels him. Dunk? He proves Sir Arlan right. He survives the trial, exonerated, because chivalry trumps title. And we finally got a story that shows it. Part 5. Conclusion. I think one of my favorite ideas in the show that is kind of vaguely hinted at is not only Dunk's illegitimacy being a knight, right? We never see him knighted, and if anything, we see Sir Arlan not knighting him. But it's also the question of Sir Arlan's knighthood. Like, the reality of Sir Arlan, he might have just been a guy. Like, literally a dude who fought for innocent people for the pure love of the game. In my opinion, I think the story is better with neither Sir Arlan or Dunk actually being a knight. Because what that message conveys to you, chivalry, it's not a title. It's character. It's the Western blueprint for turning fools into legends, not through glory, but through honor and goodwill. Maybe this is your call to act. Maybe if Western civilization is something you care about, maybe it's time to look into what it means to be chivalrous. For all men are fools, and all men can be knights when it matters. Thank you. By the way, if you want more Game of Thrones content, I highly recommend these channels. Lord knows I watch a ton of them, because this isn't my regular shtick, so I can't guarantee I will do content like this again. But these guys do it regularly, and interestingly enough, to keep my attention. So huge props and shout out to them, and for the showrunners at HBO, who actually gave a Game of Thrones season that didn't have me ripping my hair out at the frustration over how stupid the writing got. So, that's what I have to say. Okay, have a good one. Bye!